appreciate being here, and one of the reasons I'm here is my attorney is somewhere in this room and friend, and my talk is about continuous change, but one of the few things I haven't is him for some reason, but actually I appreciate him inviting me to be here today. We are actually talking about what I'm going to talk about on continuous change, but I believe that all businesses go through it nonstop, and if they don't, they usually perish. And I'm going to talk about a few of my changes over the last 20 years. And someone said I started my business when I was 3, but I wish. And part of that continuous change is, ironically, a very good friend of mine the other day told me, and I've told some people this morning, that I never figured out what the word no means, nor would I listen to it. And that's kind of how I got here, and also the continuous change, because every time something came up and said, someone you couldn't do it, or you shouldn't do it, or no, I never listened. Made a lot of mistakes, and luckily a few things went right. And part of today is I am a member of EO Chicago and have been for about 6 years, and have learned a tremendous amount about that with that group. And the interesting thing is this is probably one of the most difficult groups to speak to because you all understand this subject. So this is probably one of the tougher presentations. Speaking to people who don't know anything about your topic is easy. This is a little bit more difficult because I respect the people in the organization, and a lot of the people I've met today, it makes it a little more difficult because you're talking to people who actually understand and have an interest in what you're doing and you've accomplished. So also what I'm going to do in our EO meetings, we share experiences. We never tell anybody what to do or what they should do or how to do it. We always talk about an experience that has helped us and hopefully will help you in your business. And that's actually what the entire group is about, and really just helping people grow. So my stories are going to be a little bit about what I've done, and hopefully it'll help you guys or get something out of each one to make decisions in your business, maybe go forward, take some risks. And actually what I called it was continuous informed risk. Because that's what I've done through the course of my businesses. And you kind of have to when you literally start a business from your basement up. And that's where I started SCS Corporation. And that business was a company to ship medical waste, small quantities of medical waste from your doctor's office and industrial sites and anywhere needles were generated in 1996. And most people thought I was insane. But that business came out of a failure. And the failure was I wanted to be in the business that actually took all this disgusting stuff in and processed it. And after about 4 years and a significant amount of money lost of my own, investors, you name it, friends, family, probably Jack, we failed miserably. But one of the services I wanted to provide was what they call this mailback kit, mailback sharps. And we were going to sell them to our customers. So I knew everything about the business, but I had no business anymore. And when I was broke, sitting in my basement, unemployable, didn't have a job, and didn't have any money, I was like, now what do I do? So I looked at this kit and I said, all right, I know everybody in the business, no one is doing this. I'll go back to all these companies that were going to be competitors and say, hey, I'll build this crazy thing for you. You put your name on it and I'll send it back to you. I'm like, that's kind of an interesting idea. So I started doing that, built them in my basement, went out and sold them in the morning, made them in the afternoon, shipped them, and started gaining some customers. So the first kind of change was take this failure, find something from the ashes and grow it. We started SCS Corporation. Someone asked me what it stands for, and quite honestly it's nothing other than silly containers and shit was actually what we told people. One of the first things we looked at was capital. I didn't want any capital. I didn't want any partners. I wanted to do this on my own. I was tired of investors telling me what to do, how much I was going to own, all this stuff. So I said, I'm not doing it. I ended up taking some money from an investor because we needed some capital to get started, to buy supplies and so forth. That was probably obviously good in the beginning. It got us to the point where we were self-sufficient in about a year and a half off of about a $100,000 investment. And so my prime process in my head was, I don't want to go through this. I don't want to do more investment contracts. I don't want to deal with these people. But the change was, hey, I need some money. Let's take this and see where it goes. So we did. That also helped us in 10 years, the company moved 5 times. And this is one of my other continuous changes. As the business grew and we looked at new opportunities and new products and new things, we had to keep moving. Physically move a product business is a royal pain. If any of you can imagine, between products and racks and computers and all the things that go with a tangible business, it's a headache. And we did it 5 times. Every time we did it, I was kind of apprehensive, but most of my continuous ideas and success are all in hindsight. I didn't always think them all the way through. I kind of did. I did the research, but a lot of them were on gut reaction or gut instincts. Should I do it? Luckily, some of these I'm going to talk about actually worked out pretty well. But moving them always interfered with our business. Customers were yelling at us, why isn't stuff done? It is an interruption in your business, but also standing here today, I'm extremely glad we did it because the last move was one of the things that actually helped sell the company. Buying out my partner, who actually put in the original money, was one of the best aha moments for me and also one of the scariest moments at that time. At the time we bought him out, he had made about 20 times his money in. And we stopped taking money from him, like I said, after about a year and a half, he stopped putting money in. And the interesting thing is, he didn't believe in the business. He said more often than not, this is going to fail. You're never going to get to the point where it's worth anything or have enough cash flow to actually make a living, take any money out, and really get to where you want to be. I don't believe that. So we fought and argued, and finally one day I said, I'm leaving or you sell me your half of the company. And since he didn't do any work and never showed up and didn't know what we did, he decided to sell me half the company. The month after I bought it from him, and I mortgaged my house, did all the things that everybody has done to get all this money together, begged the banks, make up a business plan. I do make it up because anything out of 12 months is a lie, and said, we're going to make this. The month after I did it, we had the best sales numbers ever in the company. And that was our low water mark for the next 6 years. Or 5 years, excuse me. We never turned back. It was the breakthrough, it was the aha, I felt like a king, broke, but a king. I owned the entire thing, I could do whatever I want, I didn't have to ask anybody what to do, and I started making decisions faster and faster and better, because I wasn't looking over my shoulder to say, well, what is he going to think, or what's going to happen, or is he going to be mad at me, or we're going to have a fight tonight, or am I going to crash my car on the way home because he's screaming at me about something. He used to call me at all times of the night. I got stuck in a freight elevator once, and he was calling me, screaming why I didn't call him. I'm on a freight elevator. That was the kind of relationship we had, but it was a great feeling. I owed all this money, but I owned the company. That was 2005. A year and a half later, I decided we kept growing. Our customers kept telling us they wanted new products. We started out shipping medical waste, then we shipped mercury, amalgam, lead foil. We started a fulfillment business. One of my customers came to me and said, hey, we're shipping these little Sharps containers. Can you ship them all over the country for us? I had no idea what I was doing. I said, sure. So I built a fulfillment business inside of our current business. Really what the business became was a pick, pack, and ship. Anything can go in a box, we shipped it. And that relationship started growing. Our top 3 customers were Safety Clean, Cintas, and Stericycle. But they all, I call it VOC, voice of the customer. They'd always call me up, hey, can you do? I said, sure, we can do that. And normally it was I'd hang up the phone and go, crap, how do I do that? But we kind of partnered with them, not an ownership standpoint, but really I'd meet with them probably weekly, monthly. What do you want? What are you doing in your business? And that continuous conversations and change brought most of our new products and ideas. They weren't mine. My forte in the business world is commercializing things. I'm kind of an inventor and I come up with crazy ideas, but I can take it from the idea to market, and that's what my brain does. I'm good at that. And when someone says, hey, how do you ship small quantities of mercury? I go figure it out. How do you do this? We figure it out. So we built an entire infrastructure around a fulfillment business. It just happened to be highly regulated, very difficult to get into, and we serviced our customers to death. And they always come back with that voice of the customer. We're looking for something else. The next thing that came up was the business is growing so fast, now where do we go? So it's kind of how I got in the real estate business, which is one of my companies listed here, CMZ Properties. I couldn't find anything to buy. I couldn't find a building to lease. The fire department was about to kick me out of the building I was in because we had maxed it out. And I'm freaking out because our customers are trying to send us more product to ship and more things to build. And every time a truck showed up, I'd hide. Because the warehouse would come in and say, where do we put it? I was like, just find a place, leave me alone. I got to sell this stuff. So I called the bank, I said, I need a bunch of money for what? I need to build a home for my business. Okay, so they said, sure, how much do you need? So I threw out a number, they said, fine. I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. So I went out looking for land. From the moment I sat on a piece of dirt, 18 months later, we had a 25,000 square foot building on it. I had no idea what I was doing. This was one of the things I said, all right, I got to do this because the business will not survive without a new home, and a home that actually is presentable. From the bootstrapping that everybody's done, I started in the basement, I went to a garage. literally a garage. I went into a building that had gang symbols on it and rented that. No air conditioning, no heat. And you just keep progressing. The next building we went into was a little bit nicer, but we needed a showroom. We needed a place that our customers could come, like Safety Clean and Cintas, and think we actually knew what we were doing. So I borrowed all this money from the bank, mortgaged my house 4 times, did the same thing over again, and put this thing up in 18 months while running the business and then trying to move the business. It was fantastic. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But man, it was stressful. But it was just one of those moments where I said, this is the right thing to do. No one told me it was or wasn't. Jack and I have talked about it. He's one of my advisors. I talk to people about it, but in the end, it's our decision. It's our money. It's our signature. Are you willing to do it? Threw it all in. And we created a medical quality building. And I guess the aha there, because I was having a hard time, by the way, with these ahas and breakthroughs because they're all continuous. But one of the coolest was one of my customers showed up and they walked in, and this place is immaculate because I'm very retentive. And it's an FDA registered facility, so it's got to be super clean. They walked in and they looked around like, oh my God, this is real. And they didn't quite understand what we were creating. They thought it was boxes and containers, and they didn't get that this was a real business. So someone said, computers and printers and people and all this equipment everywhere, and they're like, wow. And it gave us legitimacy instantly with big companies. They'd walk in, it's like, wow, you invested money. You actually are trying to create an infrastructure and a presence out there. And that basically calmed people's nerves that we weren't just this little entity in a garage somewhere that was going to fail miserably if they put our trust in us. Because especially in the medical waste side, you want to do business with a company that's solvent, has future solvency and plans, and really has an idea what's going on in that industry, because the environmental industry, I won't bore you, is so complicated, so many regulations. They audit you, they want to know, what you're doing with their waste, where it's going. So the confidence level went up tremendously. It was actually a lot of fun to watch people walk in, because you talk to them for years and they go, this is actually pretty nice. So it kind of lowered the stress level a little bit. The other thing that we did is overbuilt from an infrastructure and a people standpoint. I always got a lot of grief, and actually he did one day. I hired 4 office staff, and I only needed about 2.5. But the idea was I didn't want anybody to be over 80% taxed. So if you ask an employee right now, how much time do you have in a day? Are you at 100%, 120? Most of them will say, yeah. I wanted my people at about 80%. So when the customer called and said, can you do this? We'd have time for it. We never said no. Kind of expensive, but paid off. So that was one of the big things. And we invested in software. When we were doing $800,000 in sales, I think I spent $100,000 in software, which is obscenely upside down. But when I sold the company, we sold it for 2.5 times revenue. Not profit, not EBIT, 2.5 times revenue. Because we were one of only 2 companies in the whole country that did what we did. And one of the other things we did was to take control. The Tekken company that they spoke of was a sharps container company. I went out and I was buying containers from big manufacturers that couldn't care less about me. I mean, our $500,000 a year, they didn't care. And they could turn me off at any moment, and that's a regulated product. So I said, I got to fix this problem. So I decided, I went out and I created 4 different sharps containers. I put them in a new company. I got them FDA approved. I brought in some partners and built a company that I had no idea what I was doing. But it was one of the best things we did because we now had control. We had our own real estate. We had our own major supplier, which is the toughest thing to buy in that industry, and no one could stop us at that point. And the disposal side, we almost went into that business, another story, didn't do it, but there was plenty of people to take the waste from us. So we really had complete control over our business, which gave us legitimacy and a saleability. So the next thing I said, okay, I'm 8 years in, 9 years in, I'm kind of bored. I really don't want to work in operations. I want to grow this company and sell it. I was finally at the point where I'm ready to go do something else. I got a real estate company now. I got some crazy ideas. And I put together a team. M&A, accountants, bankers, went out and looked to raise about $20 million. And we were in the process of going to buy my biggest competitor. We called him up. We told him we're going to come get you. And that's actually a pretty funny story because he was very difficult to do business with. Ironically, next couple of days, the phone rang, and my biggest customer said, we want to come talk to you, their M&A guy. I said, nope, not interested. Go away. Why? I've got things to do. I said, come on, I've known you forever. Talk to me. Fine. So we brought him in. The whole team was there. He said, we want to buy your company. And this is the 3rd time they've tried. First 2 times obviously failed for deal reasons, and I'm glad it did. So we talked. 6 weeks later, I sold them 2 companies. Sold them SCS Corporation and Tekken for exactly what we asked for. After all negotiations were done and back and forth, because we told them what we were up to. We said, nope, we put together some money, we're going to go out and buy this company, we're going to roll it in, make the company bigger, you can buy it in 3 years, whatever the number was. So no, we want it now. So we said, it must be worth something. So we kind of went through that process, and they said, well, we want your Sharps Container Company too. Okay. It had no value. We had just gotten our application. We had no sales other than me. And so they wanted that company. So it was kind of an interesting 6-week process, but it went very fast and also very slow. But they decided, we want you. So the change was, I was geared up for 3 years of absolute chaos in buying companies, folding them in and growing this thing, and then package it up and sell it off. That's where my mind was. I even told my employees, I said, there's going to be huge activity because this is what we're doing. Sign this confidentiality. There's going to be people running in and out for a long time. Great. Well, the table's 100% turned. And we looked at it and said, wait a second, your biggest competitor, biggest customer, and biggest player in the industry wants you. It might be time to give it to them. And quite honestly, at the time, personally and business-wise, they offered the right deal. And we said, done. We sold it to them. It was a very depressing day, but that's another presentation. But what came out of it was 2 things. Actually, I sold my oldest child is the way I look at it. And it was the most depressing, exciting, weird, frustrating day of my life. But I started 2 things out of that. I went to work for them, kind of. They didn't know I had 2 other businesses. And after the 2 companies were merged together, I said, I'm done, I'm retiring. Well, the reason I still work there is they said, well, crap, we don't know what you do. So they offered me a deal. So basically, I work there on projects. I have no employees, no staff, no boss, and I work on projects. And it was kind of one of those deals, hey, will you stick around? We'll pay your salary, your health benefits, and all this fun stuff. Sounds like a pretty good deal. So I still do that because I get to learn the inside of a public company. I still meet people. I've got great contacts there, and I'm still meeting other contacts. So that piece of my entrepreneurial world is kind of cool because it crosses over the public business side and the entrepreneur side. Then the other thing, Arrows Up is a company that is launching pretty much today, actually. This is where the good karma comes in. The 2 guys I brought in to start Tekken Safety with me, I gave them half the company. They put in the capital to buy the tooling. When Stericycle said they wanted to buy it, we had a contract that said I didn't have to pay them because we weren't far enough along. Jack and I decided, here's how much money we're going to offer them, bought the stock from them, sold it a couple days later. Well, I told them, these guys afterwards, well, they gave me some stock in their new company after the fact to help them grow it. Cool. So we were in the pallet and bin business. We were selling commodities. So I came up with this crazy idea, and I got 3 seconds, to basically ship corn, soybeans, and other granular material. I dreamed this crazy thing up, drew it on a napkin, got engineers to draw it up. Those 2 partners were afraid of the capital investment. I bought them out in January. And this invention is actually being filed today as a new patent, and that's the start of Arrows Up. And that's my story.